This YouTube rapper made over $100 million selling virtual farm animals that apparently had a better investment strategy than half of crypto. Yeah, this is definitely one of those stories that I'm sitting here like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? I can't believe that it happened. I just have so many questions about it. As I was researching this video, I'm sitting here like, kind of in disbelief, because it kind of sounds a little bit less like financial crime and more like some weird Black Mirror episode. Because the thing this guy did, he didn't rob a bank. No, he didn't hack some massive institution or company. No, he allegedly convinced over 100,000 people to invest real money into virtual cows inside of a
100,000 people
mobile game, and he somehow turned that into one of the biggest fraud scandals in modern Turkish history. Okay, so
in Turkey?
Meet Mehmet Aydin, a Turkish entrepreneur and former rapper. Yes, the international fugitive accused of running a massive Ponzi scheme was also, I guess, a YouTube rapper. But Aydin reportedly uploaded rap music online under the name of Ego Man, which in hindsight might be a little bit of a subtle hint that he would have the ego to, you know, run a $100 million Ponzi. But I mean, that's impressive. The music videos are just a little bit cursed. But yeah, there was a tweet that said, I would definitely trust that guy with $145 million. You see, anything is possible in life.
Somebody did. Yeah, I mean, I think that's impressive. I do.
Apparently, this guy can steal over $100 million. And during his YouTube rap career, he was also working as a dishwasher in Bursa. So the dude wasn't some Silicon Valley billionaire creating this cow token, to put it lightly. This was essentially a young guy in his 20s who saw an opportunity, to put it lightly, because
I gotta respect it, right? I mean, you gotta put him in jail, but like, damn.
Back in 2016, Aydin launched something called Çiftlik Bank, or Farm Bank. And honestly, it kind of looked like a Turkish version of Farmville. You had cartoon cows, chickens, and sheep. It had little farms with cutesy graphics. But the big difference is people weren't farming for fun. No, they were investing real money.
The idea is simple. You start and manage your own farm. You use gold as a currency to buy animals like chickens, goat, cattle, and bees. You earn cash back by selling the honey, eggs, and milk that your animals produce. You can then use the profits from these sales to buy more livestock and so on.
Oh, dude, I bet, in South America, probably everybody's doing this. Oh my God. This is where they all play these games.
You can also pay real money to buy virtual gold and run your farm. And that's not just some pay-to-win model. If your farm does well and you make some proper virtual gold, you can exchange your virtual proceeds back into real money.
So the idea was users could buy virtual livestock and farming equipment inside of the app. And according to the company, that money would actually go towards funding actual agricultural projects and livestock farms in the real world. And in return, players were promised a portion of the profits. And at the time, the pitch actually hit people from multiple angles.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Turkey's agriculture sector was struggling. People wanted investment opportunities. And I guess the app looked modern and tech-driven. Then I guess the most important one, the company worked really hard to make itself look real. So it wasn't just some random mobile app sitting in the app store with fake reviews. No, FarmBank created physical show farms people could actually visit in person. And they even opened branded stores selling products connected to the company. Honestly, my question is, how did this guy get the startup capital to do this?
Wait, so so this 20-year-old guy did all of this?
It would be quite complicated to set all this up on a dishwasher salary. But regardless, because
he's
of
a dishwasher?
all these demos...
What is this fucking new... This is like Turkish Scarface.
Investors could walk around and physically see the animals connected to this business. Essentially, the dude LARPed as a farmer. And the scam, I guess in a way, was kind of genius, at least in the most evil way possible, because once you give someone something physical to look at, it's a lot easier to fool. And especially in, you know, crypto 2016, when you have something physical tied to it and the investors can see it, it feels less like magic internet money and more like a real thing.
Yeah, you're really going to get something out of it.
Because the numbers behind this thing got insane very fast, because within a year and a half, FarmBank exploded across Turkey, and reports varied about this, but people were saying somewhere between 75,000 and 130,000 people actually invested into this. So that's crazy. And some reports...
I could expect that, yeah. I mean, it sounds like a great idea, especially whenever you count all the free-to-play people that are trying to do it to make a career because they don't have any money in the country they live in. Yeah, exactly.
were claiming there were hundreds of thousands more users just playing the game without even investing. And a whole bunch of estimates are saying it was about $131 million deposited into this.
Lira.
But others are saying $250 million or even $300 million in the equivalent of Turkish lira. So regardless, you know, 130 million to 300 million. This is one crazy heist. But of course, to get that many people involved, it kind of operated like a Ponzi to begin with, because at first people are actually getting paid.
Yeah.
So, you know, the new money seemed like it was paying the people who got in first.
Yeah.
And then it just kept recycling like that. So players were reportedly saying they were earning money from their virtual livestock, which then made the whole thing feel legitimate. So people then started telling friends and family that the app actually worked. And once people started saying, no, seriously, I made money from this, people started dogpiling in.
So yeah, exactly. Because it worked probably at the beginning, right? So that's why you get people in.
The app itself encouraged consistent reinvestment.
Here it is.
So users weren't just like buying animals once. No, they also had to spend money on upkeep. So they had to do, you know, supplies, storage, and maintenance tied to the hypothetical livestock that was tied to their money in the virtual currency. This is so crazy. But honestly, though, it kind of sounds a lot like some of these like 2021 NFT scams.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Regardless, Farm Bank marketed itself as innovation, and the company promoted itself as this futuristic blend of gaming, agriculture, and investment. And it was trying to like position itself under the narrative of we're helping Turkey revolutionize its farming industry.
Oh, dude, I'm really starting to like this guy. I'm sorry, but that fat YouTube rapper, I'm kind of on his side. I think free him. So far, I really feel, I think free him.
And a whole bunch of people were clearly on board because you have major Turkish TV personalities and celebrities promoting the app publicly.
He's got celebrities and oh my god.
Branding started showing up in real stores and real products carried the company logo. And at one point, Mehmet Aydin was even claiming the company would help finance one of the largest dairy farm projects in Europe, which is just such a bizarre, startup promise that, hey, in 2016, I can see how that almost kind of worked. Or, well, actually it did kind of work.
Respect the game,
a little bit at least, because
I like that.
You just put the right buzzwords around a bold enough project. It seems like you can raise some money, even though it's illegitimate. But I guess behind all the branding and hype, the cracks in the foundation were already forming, because eventually people started trying to withdraw their money, and suddenly things got weird. So by late 2017, complaints started piling up from users who said payments were slowing down or stopping up entirely. And this usually means that, we're at the end phase. We're at the end game of the Ponzi schemes when the payments stop, or well, the start of the end game at least. Because the scheme only works as long as new money's flowing in.
That's
so
right.
If people start saying, we can't get our cash out, that pretty much halts all the new
It's a run on the bank. We've had this happen
before. That's when Turkish regulators started paying a lot more attention after growing complaints from users who claimed they weren't receiving profits anymore. So authorities began investigating into this company, and suddenly Farm Bank's exciting image, just collapsed overnight. So after Farm Bank started to collapse, Mehmet Aydin's response to all this pushback was quite odd, to put it lightly.
What did he say?
Because instead of calming investors down, reports say he sold all of his shares in the company and started backing away from the business right as panic was at his
Roach out. All right. They got me. I gotta go right now. I'm done. Oh, nope. It's enough. Yep. Rug and run.
That's kind of like the financial equivalent of you're sitting on a plane, intense turbulence hits, and suddenly you see the pilot leave the cockpit in a parachute, open the door, and jump out. Yeah, it's not a good sign. But then in early 2018, Farm Bank announced that it would stop accepting new users and suspended profit payments. And authorities eventually seized company assets and launched a criminal investigation into what prosecutors described as a massive fraud operation involving organized criminal activity and money laundering. And then Mehmet Aydin disappeared. He was just gone. According to reports, he fled Turkey with enormous amounts of money, while thousands of investors was left essentially empty-handed. And somehow, despite being international wanted, the dude was allegedly spotted in Uruguay driving around in a Ferrari, which is...
Is he that guy? I mean, I think he might be that guy. Like, this is insane.
Something I will never understand, because imagine you scam people for millions of dollars and you now desperately need to lay low. Why would you ever want to drive a bright, loud car to bring as much attention as possible to you? But obviously, because of this genius move, Interpol got involved, because people suddenly were like, wait a minute, who's that young guy in the Ferrari here in Uruguay? We've never seen him before. So reports claim that victims became so furious that bounty posters were starting to offer hundreds of thousands of dollars for information of just about this guy. So that's not good either. So again, why are you driving around a Ferrari then? What he really should have done was the 3 years in Dagestan bit. I guess that meme didn't really exist at that time, but still, he should have just vanished. Bro could have became a real farmer in rural Mongolia. It would be pretty hard to find him then. I don't actually know. I'm talking nonsense, but
I feel like nobody know. I don't really know where Nobody really knows where Mongolia is, right? I mean, like, let's be honest.
Head, it would be harder to find him if he just laid low and was like a shepherd.
Nobody really knows where it is.
But I guess that would be a boring life for him, which again is why if you are in it for the money, absolutely do not scam. Why would you ever scam? Because if you are a person who are doing everything for the money, you clearly want to go enjoy that money. And if you are
no, the thing is that, and I disagree with this. I think that a lot of these scammers get away with it. I think that there have been so many American scams and crypto rugs, and nobody was ever held accountable. Logan Paul, never held accountable. Hawk Tuah Girl, never held accountable. None of these people ever have anything happen to them. They totally run away with the bag. They make all the money. Nobody gets in trouble, and they keep everything. That's the way it is. Ice, yeah, remember that?
Cameron, you suddenly have Interpol after you. You can't really spend too much of that money, especially on the flashy Instagram type stuff. But meanwhile, you have like 100,000 people essentially having to tell their families that, yeah, so I lost our life savings because we invested in a cartoon cow app. That's a rough conversation to have. But for years, he stayed on the run while the stories around him just kept getting stranger and stranger. And some reports claimed that he was hiding in Uruguay, and others were saying no, he was actually in Brazil. And there were even rumors involving some offshore accounts, cryptocurrency transfers, luxury properties, yachts, girlfriends, fake identities, and so on. But
so he was just, he was just doing it, man.
Meanwhile, back in Turkey, the legal case just kept growing, and dozens of people connected to the farm bank were investigated or charged. So prosecutors accused Aydin and others of running a criminal organization, fraud, and money laundering. And apparently at one stage, Turkish prosecutors were seeking over 75,000 years in prison for him. So they really wanted him, because you know that you would think that would be like 74,900 years overkill. But I guess while all this was happening, Aydin was still insisting that he never intended to scam anyone, because in videos and court statements,
so he's even in, holding frame even in court.
Repeatedly claimed that
staring down a 75,000 year sentence.
He was also a victim and argued that the business had simply collapsed after authorities froze assets and disrupted operations. Which I guess is one way to frame disappearing internationally with millions of dollars. But in 2021, after more than 3 years on the run, something unexpected happened. He surrendered. Aydin walked into the Turkish consulate in Sao Paulo, Brazil, turned himself in, and days later, he was extradited back to Turkey, where he was immediately detained and brought before authorities. And the footage of him returning is like slightly surreal, because this wasn't some like mysterious criminal mastermind and
just some kid
in a suit. No, this was just some 29-year-old former rapper named Tunçuk. Did I pronounce that right? Tunçuk.
Or Chubby Boy?
I don't know, but apparently it translates to Little Chubby Boy. How are you going to be a rapper, then go to prison, and your nickname is Little Chubby Boy? And then, of course, on top of that, rob 100,000 people of their life savings. He's just not setting himself up well here. But
I mean, I don't know if it was their life savings. It's probably a lot of money,
though. Once he was in prison, Aydin started giving interviews and making statements that sounded completely disconnected from the entire situation. Because at one point, while facing tens of thousands of years in prison, he gave an interview basically talking about how comfortable prison life was. I'm not.
He's that guy.
Joking. He described his prison cell like someone reviewing an Airbnb. He talked about having a TV, tea, coffee, wardrobes, regular meals, and even preferred Turkish prison over Turkish student dorm rooms, which
he did it for safety. I think that's what happened. I think that realistically, he probably turned himself in because a lot of those bounty hunters and people that were going to kill him found his location, and he realized that they would continue doing it. So he thought that the best solution would be to turn himself into the authorities for security. That's probably what happened.
Which, they gotta fix that if that's true. And in quote, he said the prison meals were 1,000 times better. So again, if that's true, they absolutely have to fix that.
Well,
like,
hey, his name was Chubby Boy, right? So he probably thinks about that a lot.
we can't be incentivizing prison over studying. That can't be good. But imagine being the victim here. You were fooled because you invested in some virtual cows. And now the guy who sold you the virtual cows is now on TV saying, honestly, the prison food's pretty good. That would not be an ideal predicament
pissed.
to be in.
I'd be
But then on
fucking
top of that, he
furious.
said if he could go back in time, he would do it all again without any mistakes. So it's
This is incredible. This is wow.
instead of, oh, I
What a
regret hurting
champion.
people, he was like, I should have made sure
scammed
the
them better.
scheme could have gone on for longer.
Yes.
I don't know. But then you have one of the more interesting legal defenses I've
Asmongold
heard,
for sure,
because authorities charged him for his use of the word bank because he called his company Farm Bank. And that wasn't licensed as an actual bank. So Iden's defense was basically like, well, the word bank can also mean
it's a broad term.
park
Yeah.
bench. I don't know where he's going with that. And no, I'm not making that up. He reportedly argued that maybe he meant a literal bench and people just misunderstood him.
Park bench.
Meanwhile, prosecutors
Farm
kept
bench.
building the case against him, and the numbers attached to the scandal just became more and more ridiculous because thousands of plaintiffs were named in this, and authorities claimed that hundreds of millions of lira had flowed through his operation. Investigators also accused him of transferring huge amounts of money into personal and offshore accounts. Now, at one stage, reports said that Turkish prosecutors wanted more than 88,000 years in
Oh,
prison
it went up. That's smart.
for Mehmet. 88,000 years in prison. How is that worse from the 75,000 years in prison? There's no difference between 88,000 years and 75,000 years.
Well, you never know what's going to happen.
They're just really stacking them on now. But actually, after years of hearings, investigations, extraditions, and international headlines, the court finally made its decision. In February 2025, a Turkish court officially sentenced Mehmet Aydin and his brother, Fatih Aydin, to 45,376.
Oh, it could have been worse. Yeah, could have been worse. 40. I mean, really, that's like half the sentence that he was looking at. I think that's not so bad.
Years and 6 months in prison.
Yeah.
They really had to tack on the 6 months there. So there's a lesson here. Don't sell virtual cows claiming that you're a bank and that it's actual real money. Overall, massive skill issue.
Dude. Held framed the entire time. Liked prison more than living in a dorm. Riding around seen on a Ferrari in Uruguay. Took everybody's money and ran the second that he could see, like, you could see the writing on the wall. You knew you were cooked. You immediately leave. Oh my fucking God. I think this is so funny, man. It is. It is hilarious to me. I love it. I think this guy's a champion.